Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining. And I'm Afzal Sheikh, pre-sales for Checkpoint from Reddington. So today we'll be talking about securing endpoints using Checkpoint's endpoint solution. So let's start. All right. So when it comes to Checkpoint's endpoint solution, it totally depends on the agent, as in it's an agent-based solution, like most of them out there. So the name of the endpoint agent is called as Sandblast, right? So when you install this 25 MB initial agent on your endpoint and you select a couple of features, right, you get to have all the functionalities that you have selected, right? For example, you can select threat prevention, which is mainly used to protect from the virus and malware, etc., right? So you get to have this threat prevention module. Then you have file emulation and file sanitization module, which is in normal terms it's called as sandboxing, right? It gives you ability to sandbox it. And then the good thing about sandboxing is it does it a little differently. Like it uses a combination of file emulation and file extraction, or you could say threat emulation or threat extraction, right? We'll be talking about how exactly the threat emulation and threat extraction module work, right, in a shorter while. Additionally, when it comes to antivirus module, it has two layers of defenses. The first one being signature-based detection. That is, it maintains a database of signatures, right? And the moment your packet gets inside, it's going to decode the packet, extract the SHA value from that particular packet, and compare it against the database of signatures, right? The moment a match is found, it's going to take an action which you have already configured in your solution, right? And let's say that a signature for that particular packet is not found. What it does is that it forwards that particular packet to the second layer of defense, that's your artificial intelligence engine, also called as behavioral guard. And what happens in behavioral guard is that it uses a combination of artificial intelligence and machine learning, right? It uses machine learning to collect the metadata from endpoints. So what it does is that it's not going to collect everything that it sees in a particular endpoint. What it does is that it only collects indicators of attacks. For example, let's say that a ransomware attack is going on. So rather than sending the whole packets, or you could say whatever is, whatever the system event is there going on at that point of time, it's not really going to send everything. So what it does is that it's going to send only the interested packets. For example, let's say, as I mentioned, let's take an example of ransomware, right? So what happens in the case of ransomware is that the normal behavior, as in, I would say that legitimate behavior would be that, let's say, an encryption routine is being invoked in a particular endpoint, and Microsoft cryptographic service is running. That's a legitimate behavior, right? But it would become suspicious when, let's say, that the Microsoft cryptographic service is not running, but still the encryption routine is being invoked. In that case, it's a clear-cut indication that there is some other application residing in that particular endpoint which is invoking this encryption routine, right? So it's going to send these, I would say, interested packets, right? Or you could say that packets of interest to the cloud. The name of that cloud where your artificial intelligence sits is called as behavioral guard. So all these packets of interest are being sent to behavioral guard for analysis purpose, and then behavioral guard and analyzes the packet, and then it would, if necessary, it would also sandbox it, and then eventually it will give you out the verdict saying whether or not this is malicious, right? Additionally, you get to have zero-day phishing capabilities, as in, let's say a phishing attack is going on, it would just make sure that it's a phishing by looking for certain heuristics, right? And then it would have it blocked for you. Finally, you can take a couple of actions such as detecting and quarantining infections. And then it has the anti-ransomware module, that's to protect from the ransomware attacks. Finally, you get to have EDR, that's to make sure that, or you could say, investigate all the attacks that have taken place in certain period of time, right? You could set the time frame to be anything, and then you can investigate when exactly that the attack take place, how did it take place, which was the first point of entry, and what was the business impact did it have, was it remediated or not. So all these informations you can get in your EDR module, right? So when it comes to online protection that it has to offer, it comes with threat extraction module. I'll be explaining about you this in a while. And then you have anti-bot, that's to tackle your botnet attacks. You have URL filtering, that's to block or allow certain URLs. Then you have anti-ransomware module, specifically designed to target the ransomware attacks, right? Then you get to have offline protection, and in the case of your offline protection, you get anti-exploit module, right? and you get CADET, that is context-based detection and prevention. You get behavioral guard, and additionally you get your EDR module as well, along with zero phishing. And lastly, you get EDR, and inside your EDR module, you can do your full attack chain remediation, you can do forensics, you can also get a little bit of sandboxing, right? That's your threat emulation, right? So, in the case of your data protection, as in to protect the data which is residing on a particular endpoint, you can turn on full disk encryption, media encryption, document encryption, access, you can define access control rules for a particular document. Additionally, you can also define port protection rules, right? We'll be talking about each and every one of them in a short while. Moving on, you get access control, that is your to make sure that your data in motion is also secure, right? That is achieved by using your SSL or IPsec VPN. Then you get to write a couple of posture policies that comes as a part of endpoint compliance module, where you can define a policy saying that, okay, if this particular endpoint of ours does not have a latest patch updated, please declare that asset as a non-compliant asset, and you can take certain actions on it, right? Apart from that, you have application control and endpoint firewall, right? And then in the traditional prevention technologies, you get anti-malware, right? So these are the four areas that that Checkpoint Endpoint tries to address. That is data security, to make sure that data which is residing inside your endpoint is secure. Secondly, access control and secure communication. Third, advanced threat protection. And lastly, EDR. Right. So in the data security module, you get full disk encryption, right? We just spoke about it. And with this, you can encrypt the full device, right, or disk of the a particular endpoint. And additionally, you can also encrypt medias such as your pen drives, it could be hard disks, etc. And you can also define a little bit of your device control rules, saying that, okay, these are the devices which I would like to block, and these are the devices which I'd like to allow, right? And inside the access control and secure communication module, you get endpoint firewall, application control, compliance module, IPsec VPN, SSL VPN. And inside your threat prevention module, these are a couple of options that you have, such as anti-ransomware, anti-bot, anti-exploit, behavioral guard, URL filtering, etc. And lastly, in EDR module, you can do your investigation. That is generally done by using forensics collection, right? So moving forward, how exactly does the Sandblast agent work? So what happens is that, let's say that you have downloaded a particular file from a browser, right? So what it does is that the moment a file is being downloaded, it generates a copy of that file and it sends it to the end device. Already, the first thing that it does is that it will forward a copy of that file to the endpoint, and then the main file is sent to Sandblast service for the emulation purpose, right? So what happens in the case of your in the Sandblast service is that it's going to be checked if it's having certain if it's exhibiting certain characteristics of a virus or anything which is having potential to bypass your endpoint security, right? It's going to check for that. At the same time, it's not really, when I say that it's going to forward a copy of that file to the endpoint, it is not going to forward the copy as it is. So what it does is that it's going to extract all the dynamic contents from that file, right? Anything which is capable of triggering any other function, or if it's having some sort of regex, or if it's having some sort of macros, right? It's going to remove all the dynamic content and create a PDF copy of it, so that you can only view the content of it, right? And by the time your sandbox finishes emulation and all, it will give you out the verdict. Let's say that the verdict is that it is found to be secure. In that case, it will give you an option to download the original file. But let's say it was found to be malicious. In that case, it can be deleted, right? So this is how your Sandblast agent typically works when it comes to threat emulation. So as I mentioned you a while back, the threat emulation module, that is the sandboxing module, and threat extraction module, both of them work in tandem. So we just saw it that the moment a file is being downloaded, right? So what's happening here is that it's using threat emulation module to forward and emulate that file in the sandbox, and it's using threat extraction module to curb down the business effect, right? So threat extraction is being used to remove all the dynamic content from that file, right? Then roles of a successful endpoint security solution is to make sure that your attack surface is reduced. As in, you need to make sure that your systems are properly hygienic enough, or they are patched properly, right? And then you should be able to prevent it before it is being executed. You should offer runtime protection. You should be able to contain and remediate attacks. And finally, you should have response capabilities, right? So, so when it comes to reducing the attack surface, what you can do is that you can use you can use port protection feature, by which what you could do is that, let's say that you have a subnet behind the switch which is having 10.1.1.0 as a network address. So let's say that you have a Unix server in behind that subnet. Let's say it's 10.1.1.5. So general behavior is that 10.1.1.5 will be accessible to all the nodes in that particular subnet, right? Using the port protection feature, what you could do is that you can define a rule saying that this particular Unix server should only be accessible on port number 22 to only these many, or you could say you could define number of endpoints and even the IP addresses of that, right? So then you can enforce application control along with endpoint firewall. What endpoint firewall does is that it leverages your Windows firewall, and then you can frame a couple of rules in the Windows firewall right from checkpoint, right? Then in order to reduce the attack surface, you need to make sure that your data at rest and in use is secure, as in you need to have right amount of full disk encryption and media encryption in place, right? And when it comes to data in motion, how you could secure is that you can use VPN, that is your IPsec VPN or your SSL VPN. And finally, you can enforce your corporate policy. You can frame a couple of rules in your endpoint compliance module saying that, okay, these are the rules which each and every asset adhere to in order to stay compliant to the policies of organization, right? So how full disk encryption, what is full disk encryption is basically that the moment you install the endpoint on your endpoint agent on your machine, it's going to encrypt the hard disk of that particular endpoint totally, right? And then if you would want, you can encrypt only certain chunks of hard disk. For example, if you want, you can define a rule saying that encrypt only C drive of mine, right? Then using media encryption, you can define a rule saying that, okay, I want if the device is having is if the pen drive is already encrypted, in that case allow it to connect to my network, right? Or allow it to connect to my endpoint, right? Additionally, you can define a rule saying that, okay, I don't want these sort of files to be copied to my business drive or to my personal drive. So what's happening is that the moment you connect your pen drive, or it could be a hard disk, onto the USB of your endpoint, it would create two different partitions. One would be your business data partition, another one would be your personal space, right? You can define, you have that granularity in hand, such that you can define a policy saying that, okay, inside my personal space allow only these sort of files to be copied, right? And inside my the business space allow only these sort of files to be copied. Additionally, you can define a rule saying that, okay, these are the these are the kind of devices which I don't want in my network. The moment they connect, it should be blocked. So the another thing is port protection. I just explained you about this one. Then with if you would want to prevent the attack before it actually runs, what you could do is you can block known attacks, that is by turning on your signature based detection engine. You can block unknown attacks by turning on your anti-malware engine along with anti-exploit module, right? In this case, your artificial intelligence will come into picture, as in your behavioral guard would get activated. Then additionally, you can thwart exploits by using anti-exploit module, in which it'll be able to use a combination of both threat extraction and threat emulation. And finally, you can inhibit user mistakes by turning on your zero phishing blade. So the moment you turn on zero phishing blade, it would be able to detect and prevent the phishing attacks. It could be spear phishing attack, or it could be bulk phishing attack, right? So going on. Right. So with the anti-exploit in place, you'll be able to detect and block all the file-less attacks. So generally, it's not very difficult to block the file-based attacks because you already have the signature-based detection working on it, right? So when it comes to file-less attacks, you need anti-exploit module. So what it does is that it talks to the AI engine and then it tells you whether or not this file-less attempt was found to be malicious. As in, it could be any sort of a scripting attack or a script god mode, or it could be a buffer overflow or a stack pivoting, all those sort of attacks where your scripts or file less attempts are being involved. In that case, you need to use the anti-exploit module, right? So from that, you're talking about your zero phishing, right? You can block phishing sites by using the zero phishing. Apart from that, you can enforce a rule saying that okay, credential reuse should be alerted. We'll talk about this also, credential reuse. And then it can also detect compromised passwords. As in, what it does is that let's say that the moment you let's say that you have a let's say your password is 12345, right? So what it does is that it has a database of the compromised passwords in itself. So regularly checkpoint research team, what they do is that they check in dark websites such as zero day today, etc., and then they try to find out all the lists of your compromised passwords. So if those passwords are being used in your organization, it will be prompting a message saying that hey, you have used a compromised password, please do not use it, right? So these are a couple of things that you can achieve. Apart from that, if we talk about zero phishing, what happens is that let's say that you have received a link in your mail. It could be a link or a direct page in your mail. So the moment you click on that particular link, right? Let's say that you have clicked on it and you get to see a page which is very much similar to Office 365, right? So what zero phishing blade would do is that it is going to check for your IP reputation, right? A URL similarity, title similarity, visual similarity, text similarity. These are a couple of heuristics that it would look for, right? Right. So as you can see that how is the IP reputation? It's fine, right? A URL similarity, yes, it is kind of similar because it's not using office365.com. It could be something like 0ffic365.com. So there is a little bit of URL similarity which is being found. Apart from that, is there any lookalike characters or any favicon which is a copy of the genuine site? It's going to look for all these heuristics. The more matches found, the it would proportionally give rise to the phishing score, right? And the moment your phishing score rises, that means your confidence is rising. So based on the severity that you have configured on your checkpoint endpoint console, it is going to take actions on it, right? So for example, if your severity is like critical, as in it's set to the highest one, in that case what it would do is that it is going to look for even minimum phishing score. Even if the minimum phishing score is like 30%, it is still going to block it. So you need to set up accordingly, right? So it's going to display a message such as that. Now, talking about credential protection, what credential protection means is that, so there is this compliance, right? So the compliance states that any of your domain credentials, as in your company related credentials, should not be used in any of the public websites, such as, let's say my company credential is 12345 and my email address or my user ID is afzal.sheikh@redingtongulf.com, right? So if I try to use this 12345 password in any of the cloud websites, it should be able to prompt me a message saying that okay, your credentials are being reused. So how it works is that let's say that today you install the endpoint module, and tomorrow what you do is that you reboot your laptop, right? And then what you do is you enter your password for the first time. So it would see that okay, this is the username associated with it, and then with my domain user ID, and these are the passwords. So it is going to take a hash of that password, store it in the local cache, and the moment this stored hash is matched with any of the hash which is found in a cloud website, it is going to tell you that okay, your credential are being reused, right? You can see corporate password has been exposed, like that, right? So this is again a very unique feature and then very important one as well, right? So when it comes to runtime protection, it uses anti-ransomware blade to detect any sign of a ransomware activity. This totally depends on your AI/ML module, as in behavioral analytics engine, that is behavioral guard, right? And then using behavioral guard, it is able to detect on all zero-day attacks and all malwares of any unknown family. It's able to detect that. Apart from that, you can face generic rules of behavioral guard, and fileless malwares can also be detected using behavioral guard module. It uses anti-evasion technology to block any sort of a attempt being made to evade your firewall measure. So what generally hackers do is that they take a particular payload which is infected, and then they wrap it with something like wheel evasion wrapper or something, right? And then they try to bypass the firewall or bypass the anti-malware, right? So what anti-evasion blade does is that it's going to detect presence of any such third-party wrapper, and it is going to have it blocked for you. Right. Then you have anti-MIME, that is to prevent any sort of attempt being made to perform credential scraping. Right. So about the anti-ransomware attack, it's just same as the one which I mentioned in the beginning, right? So anti-ransomware module, what happens, it depends on your behavioral guard engine. So what it does is that it's going to use machine learning in the endpoint layer and artificial intelligence in the cloud, right? It could be cloud or on-premise, that choice is up to you, right? So it's going to look for indicators of attacks, and it's going to take all the metadata related to that indicator of attack. It's going to send it to the artificial intelligence engine, and artificial intelligence engine is going to emulate it, or you could say that it's going to analyze it properly, and then it's going to give out the verdict. Let's say that at the time when the verdict was being given out, ransomware attack, being a worm itself, it has already started to encrypt files, right? So what you could do is that you can turn on the remediation feature of ransomware. So what it could do is that it's going to revert to the previous snapshot. So what happens is that the moment you install anti-ransom module on your endpoint, what it does is that it starts to collect, or it starts to take a snapshot of the entire file system in a location which is not it's something that cannot be tampered. Okay, it will be encrypted and stored, and plus additionally it cannot be tampered, right? So it would store it in one of the drives properly, and let's say that the attack is going on and it has started to encrypt couple of files. It's going to record how many of the files have been encrypted, and for those files, based on the checksum value, it's going to restore it from the snapshot dynamically. And the good thing is that these snapshots can be taken in every 1 hour, 2 hours. You can configure the interval. And another good thing is that the snapshot which are being taken, they are delta in nature, as in they don't do full synchronization, as in it doesn't take the snapshot of the entire file system over and again. Rather, it would only take the snapshot of the file system which has been changed recently, right? The delta addition or delta deletion, that part will be taken, as in the moment, let's say that today it has started to take the backup or snapshot of the data, it's going to record checksum value of each and every file, right? So the moment it sees that after 1 hour, it's not going to take a snapshot again of the entire file system. It would look for those checksum values which have been modified. That means some changes have been introduced. So in that case, it is going to take a snapshot of the ones in which the change has been introduced, right? So this is how your anti-ransomware blade would function, right? And fileless malware, it can be detected using anti-malware as well, sorry, anti-exploit, and also using your behavioral guard engine. So you can detect, then the fourth most important thing is to make sure that you are able to contain and remediate attacks, right? And it can contain attacks by using anti-bot module, that is to detect and block CNC traffic. And finally, it uses the endpoint firewall module to leverage Windows firewall to prevent the lateral movement. Let's say a worm attack is going on, right? Worm, or it could also be a ransomware, because in the end, ransomware is just a worm piggybacking behind a, sorry, it's an encryption routine piggybacking behind a worm, right? So it uses, you can turn on the endpoint firewall rule, and the moment you turn it on, what it does is that it detects any sort of a lateral movement being done on the endpoint, which is generally done using worms, right? And it's going to have it blocked for you, right? Then, when it comes to remediation, you can quarantine files, you can sterilize full attack chain. Apart from that, you can restore encrypted files using the anti-ransomware module. When I say that you can quarantine files, what you could do is that you can define a policy saying that the moment any sort of a worm attack or botnet or your ransomware attack is going on, as in anyone which has the capability to perform lateral movement, right? So the moment it is detected in one single endpoint, right, quarantine that machine. When I say quarantine as in it's going to block layer 2 and layer 3 channels, as the layer 3 channels are very important to be blocked because it's the main source of communication, as in the IP addresses, right? But how do we make sure that we are also blocking the multiplication even in same subnet. So that has to be done either by plugging out the Ethernet cables or chopping off the layer 2 channels totally remotely. So using the quarantine process, you can chop off the layer 2 channels remotely as well. Right. So how does the anti-bot work? So anti-bot is again a module that is to block the botnet attack specifically, right? So what it does is that, let's say that today you have installed anti-bot, it's going to look for any sort of a CNC communication that your endpoint is forming with any sort of a botnet, right? Then what it does is it checks the CNC channel. It takes out the destination address of that CNC channel and it checks in its database based on the heuristics. Heuristics could be IP reputation, similarity of the titles, it could be domain reputation or a blacklisted domain, etc. It's going to look for all these domain heuristics, right? And eventually it's going to decide whether this was found to be malicious or not. Right. Another good thing is that Checkpoint research team, they keep on researching about the recent botnets that have been found, and they keep on updating the Checkpoint research database. Right. That's how it is able to block almost 100% of the botnet attacks. Right. You can quickly triage events using the reporting feature. Right. EDR function. That's your. You can see, you can understand, this is how the reports would look like. It's very much concise. As you can see that you have a couple of modules here to look at the general overview, to understand the entry point, to understand the remediation that had taken place, to understand the business impact it had, along with the suspicious activities that it exhibited, right? Along with the incident details, right? It's going to tell you whether or not this has been remediated, right? And then it is going to classify the malware family, what sort of severity did it possess, right? Which module was responsible for blocking it. So all these details, how it entered, when it entered, which was the processes it was trying to interact with, and which are the files which did it infect, right? It's going to give you all those details along with the remediation activities or remediation measures that it had taken up. You can see here what is the damage. 38 data ransom was being stolen, along with what was the remediation taking place, right? Was it a real attack? It is going to show you all the characteristics according to the metakill chain. For example, it is able to tell you that it exhibited certain characteristics of script execution, random message creation, etc. It's able to tell you exactly what are the characteristics is exhibited from the metakill chain, right? So how forensics works. So as we know that forensics is like a critical part of the EDR module of Checkpoint Endpoint, right? So what it does is that, let's say that you have installed Checkpoint Endpoint on 100 machines. So it's going to actively collect data from all 100 machines, right? And it's going to form a tree picture saying that, okay, this is how the machines were behaving, and this particular characteristic of a particular endpoint was found to be malicious. It will be able to tell you that, right? So it will be based on the data which it has collected. That could be from the system events, it could be from the event viewer, it could be from normal logs or application specific logs. It's going to collect all that data and it's going to form a report on the basis of that, right? Then finally it will be able to tell you, it will be able to give you out the end report. These are a couple of platforms that are being supported for now. As you can see that the Windows is supported, Mac OS is being supported, Chromebooks are supported, and VDI has also been supported. As of now, this is generally available, but this is more like this will be like fully concrete by the end of next month, right? So these are the technologies, threat prevention technologies. As you can see, threat emulation, that's your sandbox engine, threat extraction to extract the dynamic content, zero phishing, right, to tackle phishing attacks, forensics, that's your EDR, anti-ransomware, that's your anti-ransomware module, Blade, right? And finally, these are your baseline threat prevention technologies, access control, antivirus, anti-bot, right? So that's pretty much it. Now you can ask me questions if you have. All right. So if you have any questions, please feel free to write back to us, and then we can have a separate session if you would like. Right. So that's pretty much it. Thank you everyone for your time. Have a great day.